Good morning. I want to thank you all for being here today. I'm joined by community advocates in organizations such as Georgia National Organization for Women, Feminist Center for Reproductive Liberation, Planned Parenthood Southeast, Amplify Georgia Collaborative, and Sister Song National Women of Reproductive Justice, as well as Black Mama Matters Alliance and Indivisible. And Sister Love. I wish we were gathered here under better circumstances, but the truth is what's happening right now in a hospital room at Emory Healthcare should shake every single one of us to our core. Adriana Smith was declared brain dead in February, a legal and medical determination of death. And since then, her bodily functions have been sustained by machines in an attempt to continue the pregnancy. According to her family, the hospital told them that this was required under Georgia law, but that would be an unusual and deeply troubling interpretation of our 6-week abortion ban. Women deserve the ability to give informed medical consent, and when they cannot, their families must be empowered to make decisions with full information and without fear. Families deserve clarity, providers deserve protection, and Georgians deserve laws that prioritize our health, dignity, and basic humanity, not confusion, delay, and fear. Republicans have made clear they won't repeal this cruel and unpopular law, and repeal is the only way to give women access and give them the care they need. And without repeal, Georgians deserve to know what care they can access. We do not know what this law demands, and that is a failure of leadership. I have sent a formal request to Governor Kemp asking him to use his authority to get an official legal opinion from Attorney General Chris Carr. That's not politics, that is the actual process. But the governor who signed this law into effect won't even acknowledge the question. He won't answer Georgia families, he won't answer doctors, he won't answer me, and he certainly won't answer the people of Georgia. But let me tell you what we do know. We know that the sponsor of this law says it's working exactly as intended, that this woman being kept on machines is the logical result of their legislation. Meanwhile, the Attorney General's office issues a press statement saying that the law doesn't actually require this outcome. These are not small contradictions. These are life and death contradictions. And then that's why I've sent a formal letter to Governor Kemp asking him to do what only he can, request a binding legal opinion from the AG that brings clarity to this crisis. And I've asked 4 basic but urgent questions that hospitals, doctors, and families across Georgia need answered. Number 1, under Georgia law, including the current abortion statute, is a hospital legally required to maintain a brain-dead pregnant woman on life support in order to continue gestation of the fetus? Number 2, what are the precise definitions that constitute a medical emergency under this law? Number 3, when the law allows abortion in cases where the fetus is incompatible with life, what conditions actually meet that threshold? And why hasn't the state made that explicit? Number 4, how does this law affect legal standing of advanced directives and end-of-life planning for pregnant Georgians? These questions are not theoretical, they're urgent, because as long as this law remains vague, we will continue to see families traumatized, providers criminalized, and patients left behind. Doctors are being forced to make impossible choices. Families are trapped in grief and fear. And women are dying, just like Amber Nicole Thurman, who was denied care for over 20 hours and died on the operating table. Just like Candy Miller, who died after managing her own abortion at home because she was too afraid to go to the hospital. The governor's own Maternal Mortality Review Committee has called these deaths preventable. Is this the Georgia that we want? We are calling on the governor to do his job, request a formal opinion from the AG, and tell the people of Georgia what this law actually means. We're not going to sit quietly while women are used as test cases for a law no one will take responsibility for. And the buck stops with the governor. He signed this bill into law. Now it's time for him to face the consequences of what he's doing to real families. This law does harm to Georgians every day, and we deserve clarity, we deserve compassion, and we deserve better than silence. Thank you. Next, we will have Casey Marushak speak, and she will share her personal story about how Georgia's abortion law affected her.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Casey Marushak, and I'm here today not just as a grieving mother, but as a voice for women who have suffered in silence because of the unintended consequences of Georgia's abortion laws. What happened to me is not rare. It is not an outlier. It's happening every day. 1 in 4 women experience a miscarriage. Over half of them need medical intervention to complete it safely. This is not just a political issue, it's a medical one. And yet what I went through proved just how dangerous it is when politics interfere with health care. Allow me to share my story with you. We lost our baby. We found out on a Thursday morning in March, just one day after our gender reveal, that our daughter no longer had a heartbeat, but she had been given a name, Sawyer Nicole Christian. In a matter of seconds, we went from preparing to welcome her into our lives to trying to figure out how to say goodbye. My doctor was sympathetic, but because of the restrictive abortion laws, my care was limited to a list of abortion clinics, no follow-up plan, no guidance, and no support. Over the next 2 days, I called clinic after clinic, continuously having to repeat and relive that Sawyer did not have a heartbeat. My insurance recommended me go to the emergency department because of increasing septic symptoms, so I did. I spent 7 hours there in pain, in grief, and in shock, only to be discharged with no treatment, no resolution, and no care. However, we did learn I had a condition called placenta previa, meaning that if my body had tried to complete the miscarriage on its own, I could have hemorrhaged, I could have lost my ability to have children, and I could have lost my life, and yet still nobody helped. I was forced to walk around for more than a week carrying Sawyer, who was no longer alive. Our healthcare system had no place for my situation because the restrictive abortion law ties the hands of medical professionals. Our daughter had a name. She had a family who prayed for her, who loved her before she ever arrived. Her feet will never walk this earth. Her hands will never dig in the dirt in our backyard, but she left her mark on our hearts. And now she's giving me the courage to speak to you today. My story is not unique. I am not alone. I am one of many women who have been failed by a system that does not see us, doesn't protect us, and does not trust us to make decisions about our own bodies. The government does not belong in women's health care. It does not belong in our grief, our decisions, or in our exam rooms. This issue will touch every family in some way, someday. When it does, I hope things are different. I hope your daughter, your sister, your niece, or your friend is treated with the care, respect, and the urgency that I was denied because I was failed by policies that value politics over people, by a system that does not trust women to know their bodies, their pregnancies, or their pain. I am not here to debate the morality of abortion. I am here to speak to the urgent need for clear medical exceptions that protect women in crisis. Doctors need legal clarity and the freedom to act quickly when a woman's health is at risk, not after she is on the verge of sepsis. I refuse to stay silent. I refuse to let Sawyer's story end in a hospital hallway or an unanswered phone call. Her name will not be buried quietly. She mattered, and through her I have found my voice, and I will continue to use it. I will keep speaking until change is no longer a plea, but is a promise. Because if this can happen to me, it can happen to anyone, and I will not stop until women's health care becomes the priority. Thank you.
Yes.
Good morning. As has been articulated by many, we're not brought here today for one particular case, but for a multitude of situations that happen throughout Georgia, one of which you just literally heard because of this draconian law that this legislature passed. What we have learned, and frankly both Democratic caucuses understood, is that this is what happens when you deprive women of their autonomy and their choices. What these situations tell us is that more women and more Georgia families will endure these uncertainties, pain, and suffering. So let's be clear. First and foremost, we need to give women their autonomy back and repeal HB 481. That is always the goal of this caucus and the House Democratic Caucus, and quite frankly, the people of Georgia. As that fight continues, we must stand with Senator Parks and demand clarification from our governor and attorney general. What rights do women have under this law? Georgians have been asking this question. We as legislators have been asking this question. And the people standing here today have been asking this question. Yet Georgia's leadership has stayed silent. This morning, I stand with everyone here to tell the Attorney General to answer the calls of these women, answer the call of the families of this state, answer the call is so desperately needed. It is his responsibility and the governor's responsibility to give us these answers. Whether through a formal legal opinion or other means, these answers must come. The women of this state and families of this state demand this. It is my duty as Senate Minority Leader, it is the duty of the Senate and the House to prevent deaths, to prevent suffering, to prevent the heart-wrenching stories, one of which you heard today. We say we are here to do the people's business. Well, the people need answers. It's time to get to business. With that, I will let Representative Park Cannon speak.
I'll pass it. Transition. I'd like to thank you all for being here, and particularly thank Casey for sharing her story. She is a powerful speaker who speaks to the impacts of delayed care in Georgia. And this is a ripple effect that happens across our state. My name is Park Cannon. I'm proud to serve as the Secretary of the House Minority Caucus. And outside of the legislature, I am a full spectrum doula. That means I help people whether they want to be pregnant or not, whether they can sustain a pregnancy to term or not. And many times in those decision-making moments, it's not about the government and it's not about God, it's about science and medicine. And today what we're experiencing in Fulton County is a medical travesty and is a concern that all legislators should carry, because we see the through line of House Bill 481 through so many different reproductive injustices happening. As the legislator for the area where Grady Hospital is, I want to thank the professionals there for doing above and beyond care, because now they're the only level 1 trauma center in this area. Since Wellstar has closed, also within District 58, we have been looking around the state to figure out what happens when hospitals close and what happens when there is medical confusion based on the law. Additionally, with Emory University Hospital Midtown being in District 58, it has been very clear that our constituency want to see justice as served. That specifically means that medical professionals are able to do what they need to do, and that their surviving family is able to grieve privately. We ask for the privacy for her family, but we also ask for the repeal of House Bill 481. So if you're here today, I want to transport you back to the day that House Bill 481 was passed, here in this chamber. Many of us in the legislature clamored and cried. We said there will be vague circumstances that take place because of this law. After the law was passed, thankfully, based on a number of these organizations here, like Sister Song and Planned Parenthood and Feminist, we took it all the way to the Georgia Supreme Court. And we said this law is vague. Not just vague because what happens if somebody is in an HOV lane and pregnant and gets pulled over, but because of medical travesties like this one. So today we ask for the legislature to consider a full repeal of House Bill 481, which put this ban into effect and created the vagueness that we see, and to enact the Reproductive Freedom Act, which you will hear about. Thank you very much.
Next, we will have Kwajalein Jackson speak. She will be closing out this press conference. She is with the Feminist Center for Reproductive Liberation.
Thank you very much for having me here today. My name is Kwajalein Jackson, and I'm the Executive Director of Feminist Center for Reproductive Liberation. And I first want to offer my sincere condolences to all who have lost a loved one to medical mistreatment, neglect, denial of care, or obstetric violence that are hurting today. To the families of those whose names we know, and to those that we don't know, you are not alone in your grief. We mourn with you. We have long endured a system in this country where the needs of our communities have been ignored or dismissed, where our pain and suffering is simultaneously made invisible and made a spectacle for mass consumption. At Feminist Center for Reproductive Liberation, we not only provide compassionate care that people want and need in our clinic, including abortion care, but we also fight in these very halls to demand that that care people deserve, they're able to access everywhere. That means we fight to ensure that people can safely end the pregnancies that they don't want, and we fight so that people can survive the pregnancies that they do want, and everything in between. We fight so that OBGYNs, midwives, doulas, promotoras, nurses can practice the compassionate care that they are trained to do without fear, obstruction, or confusion. We fight so that birth in Georgia can be a joyous occasion that people desire and not a frightening and deadly risk that has been true for Black women for so long. What the proponents of this dangerous law fail to understand is that bodily autonomy is life. Self-determination is life. Compassionate care is life. Allowing clinicians to act in the best interest of their patients is life. Reproductive liberation is life. We are fighting for our lives, and we are fighting for the lives of those who oppose us as well. If you want to save lives, you will repeal this inhumane ban. Thank you.
Thanks so much. That is the end of our press conference. If you have questions, we are open to answering. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I think I understand you're not here to bring one specific case. I believe the mother, consents to give us some comments to indicate the family's choosing
Sure.
this type of thing. Does that mitigate at all that specific situation, or are you still concerned about this type of issue?
I mean, we're concerned with the fact that this law is mandating care without medical consent. A woman should consent to medical care, and if they can't, their next of kin should consent to medical care. And at the end of the day, if this situation, this family should have had the ability to have a conversation and not have this mandated on them. And if this were to happen ever again, we want our families, we want women to be able to have bodily autonomy and make their decisions for themselves, and that decision should be between their doctor and them.
All we're saying is that with this being a second case like this that's ever really taken place in our country, when we look at the similarities between the medical circumstances and we see there's a time ticking right now. And so many of us are curious as to what is the next course of action for these medical professionals, which is why we're gathered here today to say time is ticking. We need to figure out how this law impacts care. Any more questions? Thank you very much.